My mother loved to talk on the phone. Perhaps it was because she grew up in the middle of everything. Then, with my father's help, she raised our family in the middle of nothing. Dad traveled for work, so the phone gave her another adult to talk to. In particular, I remember her calls with her best friend, Margaret and Aaron. When they were on the phone, it was an hour or more before they were off. Fast forward to my adult years, when I'd started working at Big Al's. I would spend a fair amount of time driving to and from Long Island. The drive was at least an hour, and I spent a lot of that time on the phone. Many of those calls were with Mom, who had grown up in New York City. She always wanted me to tell her where I was and what I could see. It was during one of these conversations that I realized something. Nearly every time we spoke, I was driving over an East River bridge. I laughed at the coincidence, told her why, and she laughed too. A year or two later, I'd temporarily relocated back to Michigan following my father's stroke and broken hip in 2009. Every few months, I'd head to New York to visit Amber and Sabrina, and during every trip, my mother and I would speak frequently, and nearly every time, it was while I was crossing a bridge. On one such trip, returning to northern Michigan, I'd just begun to cross the 5-mile span of the Mackinac Bridge. A song began to play on the radio in the background, and it gently reminded me to call Mom. Then I realized which song it was, what it meant, and I laughed again. My life is full of bridges, connecting all the chapters of my life. And the most important bridge of all? Mom, Dad, Sabrina, and Amber. They connect me to and protect me from everything. My bridge over troubled water. Now, every time I hear that same song play, it tells me one thing. It's Mom, calling to say hello from the other side. Thanks, Mom, for easing my mind.